fade in on the mist-shrouded hills of Gaul, where the first light of dawn filters through ancient oaks like threads of forgotten gold. It's 52 BCE, a time when Julius Caesar's ambitions carve deep gashes across the provincial landscapes, demanding tribute in blood and bone. In a humble villa of wattle and daub, young Lucius awakens to the lowing of cattle and the distant call of a cock. At 19 summers, he is the backbone of his family's modest farmhands, roughened by the earth's unyielding grip. Dreams woven from the simple tapestry of sowing and reaping. His sister's laughter echoes in his mind like a half-remembered melody, and his father's tales of druidic rites under full moons still warm his spirit. But this morning, an unnatural hush blankets the village of a dewy territory. Roman horns blare from the valley below, heralding not traders or taxman, but the delectus, the merciless draft that has claimed so many before him. Lucius steps into the courtyard, dew-kissed grass clinging to his bare feet, and there they stand, the evil elite recruiters forged in the legion's crucibles, their scarlet sagum cloaks billowing like wounds against the green. Flanked by auxiliaries with spears glinting ominously, they unfurl the edict from Caesar himself. Every able-bodied man between 17 and 45 must serve, fueling the machine of empire against Vercingetorix's defiant tribes. Lucius's mother, her face lined like weathered bark, rushes to him, pressing a small bronze amulet into his palm votive to opponent. Protector of travelers and horses, her horse-headed form etched with desperate prayers. "May the gods ride with you, my son," she murmurs, her voice fracturing like thin ice underfoot. Tears carve paths down her cheeks, but Lucius can only nod, his throat constricted by a stone of dread. His father, stooped from years bent to the plow, clasps his shoulder with calloused finality. "Endure, boy. Roma takes but she gives citizenship, in return if you live." Yet in the hearts of provincials like Lucius, this promise rings hollow. 25 years of service, often in alien lands, for a scrap of parchment and a plot of unforgiving soil. The line forms swiftly. A motley assembly of conscripts, broad-shouldered Gauls with braided hair, lithe Germans from the Rhine frontier, even a cluster of sun-browned Iberians press-ganged from coastal ports. They shuffle under the recruiters' gazes, which appraise like butchers eyeing livestock. The march to the legionary fortress at Samarabriva begins at midday. The Via Militari is a ribbon of crushed gravel that bites into sandals and soles alike. Mud from recent rains clings like regret, slowing the pace to a dirge. Whispers snake through the ranks. Legends of the 10th Legion's unbreaking stand at Elite, where Caesar's genius turned encirclement into triumph, but also the buried truths, the mass graves from dysentery, the deserters crucified along the wayside as warnings. Lucius clutches his amulet, its edges digging into his palm, a talisman against the void yawning before him. Historical records etched in wax tablets, and later chronicled by Caesar in his commentaries, reveal the scale. Thousands conscripted annually, the backbone of an army that swelled to 500,000 souls, half of them auxiliaries like these. Foreigners bound by force to Rome's eternal vigil. The fortress looms by dusk, its walls of squared stone rising like the spine of some colossal beast. Turrets crowned with ballistae that scan the horizon for threats real and imagined. Inside, the clamor assaults the senses, smiths' hammers ringing on anvils, the guttural Latin of centurions drilling their optios, the acrid smoke of cook fires mingling with the temps of oiled leather. Tribune Valerius emerges from the Principia, the command headquarters, a colossus in his bronze-gilded muscled cuirass, the transverse crest of his helmet nodding like a serpent's hood. At 35 Valerius is the scion of a decayed patrician line, his ascent bought with cunning and cruelty, his features chiseled to severity, high cheekbones shadowed by a perpetual scowl, eyes dark as the Styx, missing nothing. He has commanded from the frozen marches of Germania to the sun-baked sands of Africa. His vine staffa, symbol of disciplinary authority stained with the sweat of flogged backs. "Form ranks, you sons of savages." His voice booms, amplified by the stone corridors, echoing off the granary vaults. "The Republicano, the Empire claims you now. Roma does not breed weaklings. She forges them in fire. Transgress, and the decimation will claim you before the enemy does." Lucius stands rigid as Valerius inspects the line, his staff prodding ribs, slapping cheeks that pale under scrutiny. "This Gaul," the tribune sneers, halting before Lucius, "reeks of plow and pasture. We'll scour that from you, or bury you with it." A ripple of uneasy laughter from the veterans, but Lucius's blood runs cold. He has heard of the fustuarium, the clubbing death for cowards, reserved for those whose spirits shatter too soon. Valerius's philosophy is pure vegetarius. The late empire tactician whose de re military would codify such rigor. Soldiers must be molded like clay, their civilian frailties beaten out until only the legionary remains lethal, loyal. Dawn of the first training day breaks with the Buccina's brazen wail, yanking the conscripts from straw pallets in their Contubernia-cramped tents, housing 8 men like sardines in a barrel. The Campus Martis awaits, a vast parade ground scarred by centuries of drills, its boundaries marked by wooden posts and the ghosts of fallen sweat. Lucius joins his cohort, the 3rd and the 5th Legion, alike 2 centuries of green recruits under Valerius's iron thumb. The Rudis, Wooden swords thrice the heft of a true gladius clash against scuda of woven willow, the impacts reverberating up arms like seismic tremors. Thrust parried, advance. Valerius circles on horseback, his mount a black stallion that paws the earth impatiently. A boy from the Rhine stumbles, shield dipping. The vine staff descends in a blur, welting his shoulder crimson. The Parthians won't wait for your tears. The tribune roars. Lucius's muscles scream, lactic fire spreading from biceps to spine, but he presses on, visualizing the plow's familiar weight to anchor his resolve. Meals offer scant mercy. The sour legionary wine vinegar brew, sloshed into wooden bowls alongside poles. A gritty barley porridge that sticks like glue to teeth. No seasonings from home, no Gaulish herbs or familial stews, just the uniformity of empire, designed to erase individuality. Evenings bring the arma, full kit burdens. 20 kilos of Larica segmentata scale armor, helmet, sword, dagger, and pack strapped for the 20-verst march that tests endurance. Lucius's back bows under it, straps chafing raw. As the cohort snakes through thorn-choked paths, Valerius riding flank, barking corrections. Your gods are idols of mud. Roma's is steel and discipline. He intones, quoting Marius's reforms that professionalized the legions, turning citizen militias into conscripted professionals whose loyalty was to the eagle, not the hearth. Yet the deepest cuts are unseen, inflicted in the quiet hours. In the tent's fetid gloom, lit by a single oil lamp's guttering flame, Lucius stares at the canvas ceiling, the snores of his contubernium mates, a cacophony that mocks his insomnia. Memories assault him, his mother's embrace, the scent of baking bread, the druid circle where stars whispered secrets. Valerius's regime exploits this mandatory oaths to the standards at moonrise, where recruits swear by Jupiter and the genius of the emperor, forsaking old deities. Isolation amplifies the ache. Letters home are forbidden until basic training ends, lest soft sentiments undermine resolve. One night, after a grueling mile run with full pack, Lucius collapses by the latrine trench, retching not from exertion but a wave of nausea born of displacement. A fellow conscript, wiry Decimus from Noricum, claps his back. It's the shadow, brother, the one that follows when the sun sets on your old life. Their bond forms tentatively, forged in shared vulnerability, but Valerius sniffs it out, assigning extra duties, digging the fossa, the defensive ditch, until blisters weep and dawn breaks. Fever season arrives with autumn's chill, a specter that claims the unwary. 2 from Lucius's tent, succumb pale-faced lads from Britannia, their bodies consigned to massed pyres with perfunctory rites. The weak are cold for the cohort's strength, Valerius declares at assembly, his tone brooking no grief, but Lucius feels it coil in his gut, a serpent of doubt. Are the gods punishing the conquered, or has Roma become the curse? During Peladril's javelin throws that arc like vengeful spears, Valerius pulls him aside. The tribune's grip vice-like on his arm. Doubt festers like an untreated wound. Gaul, I see it in your blameless, like your spirit. Lucius meets those obsidian eyes, whispering my home calls. Tribune, how does one silence it? Valerius's laugh is bark. You don't. You drown it in blood and bronze. I was like you, once conscripted under Sulla's prescriptions. My villa burned, family scattered. The legion saved me by breaking me first. A glimpse of the man behind the mask. But it vanishes as quickly, replaced by the order to run laps until knees buckle. By winter's thaw, the cohort is tempered steel ore, so Valerius claims. Lucius has shed boyhood's softness, his frame corded with muscle. Strides sink to the cadence of marching songs that glorify conquest. Yet the fractures lurk. Nightmares of recruiters, shadows lengthening like nooses, waking sweats where he claws at invisible bonds. The legion sails east on Quinquereme's oars, churning the Tyrrhenian sea to foam, bound for the Judean theater where Vespasian quells the great revolt. The voyage is its own torment, cramped balautics, the slap of waves a relentless dirge, seasickness mingling with dread of the unknown. The siege of Jotapata erupts in the scorched summer of 67 CE, a microcosm of Roman ingenuity and inhumanity. As chronicled in Flavius Josephus's harrowing Jewish war, Lucius, now a seasoned Miles Gregarious in the 15th Apollo, digs in behind circumvallation lines, double walls of earth and timber, encircling the rebel stronghold like a colossal noose. The air is a miasma, olive groves raised for siege engines, the temps of pine tar from onagers mingling with the first hints of human waste from overflowing latrines. Tribune Valerius commands the 3rd cohort, his tent a nexus of maps and missives, where he pores over Flavius Silva's engineering feats by lamplight. This hill will break them, he tells his Optios, tracing ramparts with a stylus. And us, if we falter, starve the body, and the mind follows. Hunger arrives stealthily, a thief in the night. Initial rations of hardtack and salted pork dwindle under supply strains from Judean ambushes. Lucius rations his shares, chewing slowly to fool the stomach, but by week 2, delirium sets in. He watches comrade Titus, the Sicilian baker's son, gnaw at his belts, leather edging, eyes hollow as scavenged skulls. Mother's loaves, golden, steaming. Titus hallucinates. rocking fetal in the foxhole. Lucius offers his last dried fig, a Gaulish heirloom from home, but the axe saps him further. Josephus describes it unflinchingly: sieges as psychological crucibles, where Maslow's pyramid inverts physiological needs eclipse all, breeding apathy, then rage. Legionaries far from Italia's vineyards face compounded exile, cultural dislocation, atop physical privation, their Latin oaths clashing with Hebrew cries from the walls. The sensory onslaught escalates the madness. Dusk brings the ballistes bellow, massive bolts whistling like harpies, splintering parapets in showers of dust and screams. Flaming naphtha pots arc overhead, igniting tents in hellish blooms that paint the sky infernal red. Unseen foes taunt from ramparts, slingshots, stones pinging off shields, arrows whispering death from arrows. Lucius huddles behind his scutum, pulse thundering. As a scorpion's payload catapults a rebel's severed limb into no man's land, its thud, a profane punctuation. The stench permeates, gangrenous wounds, slathered in honey and vinegar. The putrid bloom of latrine overflows, the metallic undernote of fierce wet. Valerius strides the lines undaunted, torch in one hand, gladius in the other. The shadow enemy is the one within, he bellows. But his voice cracks during a midnight sally when sappers' tunnels cave, entombing a contubernium alive. Their muffled pleas echo through the earth, a subterranean requiem that haunts patrols for days. On these abyssal lulls, wisdom emerges from the ranks. Gaius, the weathered signifer of the 2nd century, becomes Lucius's anchor, a veteran of 4 legions, his Aquila standard tattooed across his bicep like a sacred brand. At 45 with 22 years under his belt, Gaius bears the marks of Teutoburg's ambush and Carrhae's cataphracts, a limp from a pilum shard, eyes shadowed by catarrh from Egyptian sands. They share a watch atop the vallum, passing a skin of mulsome honeyed wine pilfered from a supply cart. The draft's true levy is the sole lad. Gaius rasps, his voice textured like old vellum. Alicia 52 starved on that Oppidium hill. Vercingetorix's warriors a noose of 80,000. I drew lots for mule fodder, when bread failed. Tasted victory sour as bile. His gaze loses focus, drifting to phantom horizons. Gaius unspools tales of the inner legion, relentless phantasms that march eternal. Hypervigilance, where a rustle in the forum becomes a Gallic ambush. The anhedonia that turns triumphal feasts to dust. Dissociative fogs where battles replay in banal moments. Like hammering a nail, Lucius leans in. The siege's din, a muffled roar. In Jerusalem, the holy city you stormed with Titus, Gaius spits into the dust. Worse than Hades, famines, silence deeper than screams. Men lots for kin's flesh. Victors envied the crucified. Josephus saw it, wrote it plain. The mind unravels when gods withdraw. Echoes of modern diagnostics flicker in Gaius's laments. PTSD's triad of intrusion, avoidance, arousal though. Ancients framed it as divine displeasure or humoral imbalance. Tacitus, in his annals, alludes to such furor among auxiliaries, mutinies, in the East. Veterans, self-slaughter in colonies. The empire's underbelly, where glory's coin is minted from madness. Valerius, he'll pen dispatches. Claim the eagle's nod, but we bear the catena invisibilis, the unseen chain. The impasse shatters on Selinus's 18th dawn. A ram breaches the aqueduct gate. Oaken beams splintering under hydraulic fury. Legionaries surge like a crimson tide. Testudos interlocking shields against arrow storms. Lucius advances in the van, Gladius slick with purpose, Valerius at the fore, a demigod in bronze. Bellowing Roma, an arrow feathers the tribune's thigh mid-stride, fletching buried deep. He wrenches it free, blood sheeting his greaves, yet presses on, binding with a torn philera strap. The melee devolves to frenzy. Close-quarter stabs, guttural cries in Aramaic and Latin, the wet crunch of bone. Lucius dispatches a defender with a shield bash and thrust, but victory's elixir is tainted over a rebel's body. He glimpses a child's toy, a clay rattle amid the rubble, and nausea surges. Post-battle. The legion licks wounds in Jotapata's husk, pyres crackling with the fallen's rites. Lucius, elevated to decanus for valor, finds Valerius in the makeshift valetudinarium, a Greek surgeon stitching the gash by torchlight, stripped to the waist. The tribune's torso is a palimpsest of scars, lash marks from his own decimation days, puckered burns from Iberian pitch. You fought like a son of Rome, Lucius, he concedes, voice laced with unaccustomed gravel. The draft, it drafts more than flesh. Under Marius, I was voluntarious, but the ghosts care not. Teutoburg 3 legions 2, mist and mud. I hear the horns still, in thunder. Vulnerability bridges the gulf. Commander and conscript, both conscripted by fate's cruel levy. We erect arches for triumphs, Valeria's muses, but the true monuments are these. He traces a sick. Appian and Dio Cassius corroborate. Even elites bore psychic burdens. The empire's expansion, a double-edged pilum. Gaius intercepts. Lucius at the victory feast roast kid, and pilfered olives under a canopy of captured banners. Triumphs fleeting. Boy. Homeward bound, but altered. The veteran carves a votive wolf from olive wood. Its eyes chips a flint. My villa in Etruria wife fled after I mistook her for a Dacian in fever dream. The connubium grant, withered vines like my mirth. Lucius fingers his amulet, verdigris flecked, and pledges endurance. Yet, as the 15th entrains for sea, grain freighters groaning under amphory, the Judean sun dips, casting elongated shadows that mimic marching phantoms. Winter quarters in Antioch bring uneasy respite. The Orontes' languid flow a counterpoint to inner tempests. Lucius drills new conscripts, his voice echoing Valerius' tambour. But nights unravel him. Catapults wine morphs to Gaulish winds. Starvation's pang to hearth hunger. Gaius' counsel lingers. Seek the haruspex, or the vine's forgetfulness. But the scars, eternal as the forum's arches, spring zephyrs carry the cohort west. Across the mare, Nostrum's azure expanse, to Gaul's verdant embrace, Lucius disembarks at Ostia. The ports bustle a cacophony of homecoming and alienation. The Via Appia unfurls like a vein to the Alps, but each milestone mocks. 25 years loom, a sentence half-certain. He reaches his village at harvest's cusp, the fields golden as promised, but the air tastes stale. Mother weeps joy, sisters cling, father nods pride, but their touches feel spectral, words muffled through a veil. Tell us of glories. A sister begs, eyes wide. Lucius smiles fractious, spinning tales of eagles and aqueducts. But inside, the chasm yawns. Nights reclaim him fully. Plowing by day, the share's gleam evokes gladius flashes. Orchard shadows harbor Jatapada snipers. A dropped amphora shatters, and he dives for cover, heart galloping, phantom foes. Mother finds him thus, murmuring of druids' herbs for warsickness, but Lucius waves it off from us sons bear silent. Gaius' final missive arrives via courier. The inner legion marches on. Plant deep roots, lest they uproot you. Yet uprooted he remains, a graft failed. In Rome's grand narrative columns of Trajan, arches of Titus' conscription gleams as genius. Legions that tamed 3 continents, auxiliaries half the force. Their barbarian vigor, the empire's secret steel, but scrolls whisper dissent, Suetonius' accounts of veteran unrest. The year of the 4 emperors' mutinies, sparked by unpaid scars. Provincials like Lucius, comprising the Auxilius Corps, endured cultural crucifixion atop combats forge exile, amplifying trauma, as modern psychology posits and studies of displacements told. As seasons wheel, Lucius weds a neighbor's daughter, sire's sons, who play at soldiers with sticks. He teaches them the drill, but averts eyes from their glia lest they taste the draft's bitter draught. Valerius rises to legate, his memoirs lauding unbreakable wills, yet private letters to Lucius confess the toll. The eagle weighs heavier than bronze. Gaius fades into obscurity, his plot in Campania, a vine-choked tomb, but his wisdom endures in Lucius's quiet vigils. Fade to twilight over Gaul's eternal hills. Lucius at the stream's edge. Waters ripple, fracturing his reflection, a warrior's haunted gaze in a farmer's weathered frame. The draft concludes in flesh, but its echoes reverberate through bloodlines. A levy on the human spirit as timeless as empires fall. In these hidden wounds, Rome's true legacy, not marble, but the fragile clay of the soul, scarred yet striving.